"Sir, I need to withdraw the marriage application with Ethan Morgan. I've applied for a research position at the Northwest Military Base. For the rest of my life, I want to dedicate my strength to our country." Saying this, Jessica Sinclair felt a weight lift from her heart, her eyes bright. The commanding officer stared at her for a long moment before speaking with respect. "You're a top graduate from the National Defense University. You certainly deserve the opportunity. But have you discussed this with Ethan?" Jessica's voice was calm. "This is my choice. If he loves me, he'll wait. If he doesn't, I won't force it." The office fell silent. After a pause, the commanding officer nodded. "All right. It will take about 10 days to officially retract the marriage application. Use this time to sort out your personal affairs." Jessica saluted and left the commanding officer's office. Outside the base, a gust of night wind swept by, making Jessica shiver despite herself. She quickened her pace towards the military housing. As she passed the arts troop building down the street, she noticed a familiar Jeep parked there. Soon, she heard a woman's voice nearby. "Ethan, thank you for standing up for me today. Being new here, some colleagues have been a bit unwelcoming." Jessica watched the pair standing close together, almost like a painting. The cold wind stung her eyes, making them water. The man was her fiancé, Ethan Morgan, the one she'd just filed marriage papers with not long ago. The woman was his ex-girlfriend from military school, Wendy Ashworth, who had recently returned from abroad. Under the faint moonlight, they walked side by side from the arts troupe building towards the Jeep. Ethan's face showed a natural ease, a comfortable rapport. Jessica clearly saw the smile on his face and heard him say, "It's no problem. If you run into any difficulties in the future, just come find me." Another gust of wind hit, and Jessica felt the chills seep deeper into her heart. She continued walking into the wind, only to see Ethan take off his military jacket and drape it over Wendy Ashworth's shoulders. "It's getting cold tonight. Wear this. I'll drive you home." With that, Ethan walked to the Jeep and opened the passenger door for Wendy. Then, the Jeep drove past Jessica, feeling like it drove right through her heart. The cold became unbearable. Without lingering, Jessica ran back to the military housing. Half an hour later, she emerged from a hot shower and was drying her hair when Ethan opened the door and came in. He was wearing only a white shirt, his short, styled hair slightly messy. Seeing Jessica looking at his attire, Ethan explained, "I ran into a female colleague on the way back. She looked cold, so I lent her my jacket." A female colleague? Why not just say it was Wendy Ashworth? Was he worried she'd mind? But ever since discovering 2 weeks ago that the boyfriend she'd been with for 5 years still carried a torch for his ex, she had already cried, argued, and then forced herself not to care. That's when she submitted her application for the Northwest and decided to retract the marriage papers. A bitter, sarcastic smile touched Jessica's lips. She nodded. "Caring for our colleagues is a good thing. I don't mind." Ethan, who had always paid only minimal attention to her nuances, naturally didn't catch the hoarseness in her voice. He changed into slippers, grabbed his pajamas and towel from the balcony, and headed straight for the bathroom. As the sound of running water started, Jessica returned to her bedroom, leaving the cold indifference of the living room behind. Entering her room, her eyes immediately fell on the 18-inch framed photo of a couple, a man and a woman, on the cabinet. Instantly, memories of her time with Ethan flooded back. Their fathers, Arthur Sinclair and David Morgan, were comrades who had gone through life and death together in the military. Because of this deep bond, the two families had arranged their engagement when they were very young. She and Ethan were essentially childhood sweethearts, growing up together. Later, Ethan followed in his father's footsteps and went to military academy, while Jessica, showing a talent for scientific research, was sent abroad by her father for advanced studies. Before she left, Ethan told her, "Jessica, when you come back, we'll get married." 4 years later, Jessica returned and they planned their wedding. But a month before the wedding, Jessica learned that Ethan had fallen for another girl during military school, Wendy Ashworth, and they'd had a deeply passionate relationship. That girl was Wendy Ashworth. At the time, Jessica had wanted to break up with Ethan. It was David and Mary Morgan who intervened, pleading with her. Ethan apologized profusely and promised there would be no lingering ties. She reluctantly agreed to give him a 1-year probationary period. During that year, Ethan had been a reasonably considerate boyfriend. For Ethan, Jessica had even given up a position in the Northwest, a place where her skills could have truly flourished, choosing instead to accompany him to Hadley City. She had genuinely believed they could make it to marriage. Until 2 weeks ago, when Wendy Ashworth was suddenly transferred to the Hadley City Military District. Jessica clearly saw the usually unflappable Ethan struggle to contain his emotions, his gaze drawn involuntarily to Wendy the moment he saw her. On that very ordinary day, Jessica decided she had to force herself to let go of this very important person. After Ethan finished showering and came upstairs, he saw Jessica sitting distractedly on the edge of the bed, lost in thought. "What are you thinking about? Why aren't you asleep yet?" His voice broke Jessica's reverie. She looked up to see Ethan standing at the doorway in his black pajamas. She put the photo into a drawer, hiding the emotion in her eyes. "Nothing, just some work things." Ethan nodded, saying casually, "Okay, well, don't stay up too late. I'm going to bed." With that, he turned and walked towards the room across the hall. Jessica watched his door close, then closed her own. The night passed, and a new day dawned as usual. The next day, when Jessica opened her door again, Ethan's room across the hall was empty. He was already gone. Jessica quickly got ready, tidied up briefly, and then headed out to the military base. She was leaving soon, and the final tasks she couldn't afford any mistakes. She needed to ensure a perfect handover to her colleagues. Jessica spent the entire day immersed in research data. As evening approached, she finally rubbed her sore neck and headed home from work. Just as she reached her front door, she saw Ethan and Wendy Ashworth standing in the living room. Seeing Jessica return, Wendy faltered for a moment, then handed the green military jacket back to Ethan. "Since Jessica's back, Ethan, I'll return your jacket. I should get going." She then hurried away. Only Jessica and Ethan remained in the room. Ethan put the jacket back on and spoke calmly. "The female colleague from last night was Wendy. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to overthink it." Jessica put down her work bag, her voice cool. "It's fine." Achoo! Just as she finished speaking, the scent of roses clinging to his jacket irritated her nose, making her sneeze. She instinctively covered her mouth and nose. "I'm allergic to rose perfume." Ethan paused, then seemed to recall that Jessica had never bought roses, nor had they ever used anything rose-scented in the house. He frowned slightly. "Sorry, I'll step away." He took a few steps back, distancing himself from her. Jessica watched Ethan simply retreat, without any thought of taking off the jacket and changing. A mocking smile flickered across her pale face. "Your ex-girlfriend washed this jacket, didn't she? Can't bear to take it off and change?" Ethan's expression stiffened slightly, his thick brows furrowing. But looking at Jessica's pale face, he waited for her to compose herself before saying, "That's all in the past. Let's not blow it out of proportion. You should rest. I need to go back to the base to handle some military matters. Don't wait up for me tonight." This time, Jessica remained silent, offering no reply. After watching Ethan's tall figure disappear through the doorway, she turned and opened the windows, letting the last traces of the fragrance dissipate from the room. Then, she went to the study. Finding a box, she began taking her professional books down from the shelves one by one, packing them carefully. These were all coming with her. Suddenly, a slip of paper fell out from between the pages of a book. "Don't be discouraged. Believe in yourself. I support you." Recognizing Ethan's handwriting, Jessica's heart instantly felt a pang of sourness and bitterness. A month ago, she had hit a bottleneck in a military defense project she was researching. Unable to find a breakthrough, she had been frowning constantly. That day, just before leaving on a mission, Ethan had suddenly slipped her this note. Seeing the words on the paper then, warmth had rushed through her, a sweet feeling blossoming in her chest. So she had carefully folded the note and tucked it preciously inside the book. A week later, encouraged by Ethan's note, Jessica reviewed her work, found the breakthrough, and successfully completed the defense project. The first person she wanted to share the news with was Ethan. Hearing he was back, she had immediately rushed to the base. She wanted to celebrate this victory with him. But instead, she saw Ethan holding a bouquet of roses, his eyes crinkling with warmth as he presented them to his ex-girlfriend, Wendy Ashworth. "Wendy, you're not alone here. Whatever happens, I'll always be by your side." She, his girlfriend, had never heard such a tender tone from him. All she had received was a plain, cold slip of paper. In that moment, Jessica felt each word on the note blur into a knife. It scraped across her entire heart, leaving her in agony. Jessica's eyes reddened slightly as she put the note back where she found it, deciding not to take it with her. Since she was letting go, she needed to make a clean break. Clinging sentimentally to an ex-boyfriend's mementos wasn't her style. She continued packing her other books as night gradually enveloped the land. By the time she finished packing the books, it was already 9 p.m. She glanced subconsciously towards Ethan's room. He hadn't returned. She sealed the book box with tape and went back to her own room, falling asleep to the sound of the soft wind outside. The next morning, Jessica was in the kitchen making breakfast. Halfway through her meal, she was surprised to see Ethan come downstairs. She paused. Ethan asked her, "What's wrong? Is there something on my face?" Jessica shook her head. "No, I just didn't think you'd be back last night, so I only made breakfast for one." Ethan froze for a second, then picked up the half-eaten fried dough stick from Jessica's bowl and started eating it. "It's okay, I'll just have yours." Jessica watched him, wanting to say something, but her gaze unintentionally fell on the calendar hanging on the wall nearby. She spoke abruptly. "It's Dad's 50th birthday in 2 days. I plan to go back home for it. Do you have time?" Ethan nodded. "Uncle Arthur's 50th is a big occasion. I'll make time to go back with you." After that, neither spoke. After breakfast, Ethan left first. When Jessica finished cleaning the kitchen and saw the calendar again, she took a pen and drew a red star on the date she planned to leave. It was like setting a countdown timer for her departure. Then, for the entire day, Jessica immersed herself in the research lab at the base. The wrap-up work could be finished in the next 2 days. After handing everything over, maybe she could even spend an extra couple of days with her parents. 2 days later, Arthur Sinclair's birthday. Jessica had initially booked a table at a local restaurant, but her father, Arthur, insisted that military families shouldn't be extravagant. A small family gathering would suffice. Unexpectedly, however, many of Arthur's former subordinates, students, and comrades showed up. Hearing this, Jessica planned to head over early to help. Ethan was in the driver's seat, just about to start the car. Just then, a sentry hurried over and leaned in to whisper something in Ethan's ear. Jessica vaguely heard the word hospital and saw Ethan's expression darken progressively. After the sentry left, she instinctively asked, "Is someone hurt?" "I thought I heard hospital." Ethan looked at her, his gaze slightly evasive. "Yeah, it's Wayne Davis. That kid got slightly injured during patrol this morning. I might need to go check on him at the hospital." "Then you should go. I can just take a bus home." She knew Wayne Davis. He was one of Ethan's loyal subordinates who had been through thick and thin with him. The young man was hardworking and driven. Jessica was concerned about him too, so she unbuckled her seatbelt and got out of the car. A flicker of apology crossed Ethan's eyes behind his thick brows. "I'll head over as soon as I'm done." With that, he drove off. Half an hour later, Jessica arrived back at the old family house. After retiring, Jessica's parents hadn't stayed in the military compound, but had built a courtyard house on the outskirts of Hadley City. Later, Ethan's parents had also moved in next door after she and Ethan settled nearby. The two families officially became neighbors. As Jessica walked in, she heard the cheerful chatter of both sets of parents. Seeing Jessica, Mary Morgan immediately came forward and took her hand. "Jessica, you're back. Why are you alone?" "Where's Ethan?" Jessica replied gracefully. "One of his subordinates got hurt, so he went to the hospital to visit. He'll be over later." She then handed the gift to her father, who was seated in the main chair. "Dad, wishing you happiness as vast as the eastern sea and longevity rivaling the southern mountains." Arthur Sinclair laughed heartily. Good, and Dad wishes my daughter happiness and a good life." Meeting her father's loving gaze, Jessica felt a pang of sadness. She had applied to go to the Northwest, thousands of miles away, behind her parents' backs, and had even retracted her marriage application with Ethan. She didn't know if they would be angry when they found out, but Jessica knew that her parents would ultimately support her in whatever she was determined to do. After chatting with them for a while, Jessica went to help greet the guests. By noon, the meal was almost ready. Arthur Sinclair asked again, "Jessica, why isn't Ethan here yet? Go check the gate and see if he's arrived." Jessica replied, "Okay, I'll go take a look outside." She walked towards the entrance. As she passed through the living room, she instinctively greeted the guests seated there. The next second, she saw Wayne Davis sitting there, perfectly fine. At the same time, the sound of a car horn came from the entrance, and Ethan walked in. Today was her father's birthday. To keep everyone happy, Jessica didn't expose Ethan's lie. But watching Ethan walk straight past Wayne Davis without a hint of guilt, her heart couldn't help but ache. Taking a deep breath to steady herself, she forced a smile back onto her lips and walked into the inner hall. "Commander, your subordinate wishes you health like a pine tree and long-lasting years. Teacher, your student wishes you good health and a happy life. Old brother, your younger brother wishes you health and longevity, and many more years of drinking together." Jessica stayed by her father's side, helping him deflect drinks offered by guests, displaying the poise expected of the Sinclair family's leading daughter. The banquet was lively, and everyone enjoyed themselves. After the feast, Jessica and Ethan stood at the gate, seeing off all the guests. After sending off the last group, Ethan's comrades, the two found themselves alone for a rare moment. A night breeze blew past, and emboldened by the alcohol, Jessica spoke. "Ethan?" Just then, the sound of sobbing came from nearby. A distraught neighbor woman was clinging to a man's arm. Behind the man stood a fashionably dressed woman. The neighbor woman cried, tears streaming down her face. "I take care of you day in and day out, but ever since your ex-girlfriend came back divorced, you've been obsessed, hovering around her constantly. Now you're even staying out all night for her." The man, seemingly embarrassed, shook off the woman's hand. "Are you crazy? How many times do I have to tell you? Chloe and I are just ordinary friends now." Chloe must be the name of the man's ex-girlfriend. Hearing this, Jessica turned to look at Ethan beside her. Weren't she and Ethan in the same situation as this arguing couple? Except they were married, and she and Ethan weren't yet. But it was good she wasn't married yet. Thinking this, Jessica smiled, though the curve of her lips held no happiness. After a while, the crying neighbor woman was led back home by the man, and the street became quiet again. Jessica looked up at the full moon tonight and asked softly, "Ethan, don't you think they're just like us right now?" "What?" Ethan's mind was still on the couple from earlier. He hadn't heard Jessica. He asked again, "What did you just say?" Jessica shook her head, changing the subject. "The moon is so full tonight. If only everything in life could be this complete." The wind continued to blow. There was no reply. Jessica walked back into the courtyard first. Behind her, Ethan watched her slender figure and seemed to recall the events of the afternoon. He caught up to her and said in a low voice, "About this morning, I admit I hid it from you, but I'm really over Wendy." Jessica stopped and asked Ethan calmly, "If you were really over her, why did you lie to me?" Ethan frowned, his expression freezing. Jessica didn't wait for his answer and went straight into the house, back to her room. Outside, Eleanor Sinclair's voice drifted over. "Ethan, you and Jessica both drank tonight. Stay over, you can go back to the base tomorrow." Jessica stood by the window in her room, looking across at the guest room Ethan occupied. The light turned on, then off. "It doesn't matter," she told herself. "I'm leaving anyway, so I don't care anymore." She enjoyed a rare good night's sleep in her own home. The next day, sunlight streamed into the room. Jessica went to the dining room for breakfast. Ethan wasn't at the table. Her father, Arthur, told her there was an urgent mission at the base. Ethan rushed back early this morning. Jessica nodded, continuing to eat her plain rice porridge with pickles. After breakfast, she mentioned she had taken leave from the base to spend a few days with her parents. Both Arthur and Eleanor were delighted. On the first day at home, Jessica played chess with her father. On the second day, Jessica helped her mother water the flowers. Life felt, Chinese letter, pleasant leisurely in a way it hadn't for a long time, but the date of her departure drew ever closer. On the third day, noticing the weather turning colder, Jessica went out to the mall and bought winter coats for her parents in advance. Next, she went to the market and bought lots of groceries, planning to cook a meal for her parents. Finally, she went to a general store, searched for a long time, and bought holiday decorations, banners, and good fortune symbols for the new year. She likely wouldn't be able to return for the holidays this year. Having these things ready was a small way to show her filial piety. When she returned home laden with bags, her father, reading the newspaper on the sofa, looked at her curiously. "Kiddo, why did you buy so much stuff? And holiday decorations? The new year is still months away." Jessica replied vaguely, "My leave is quite long this time, and work will be very busy afterwards. I might not get holiday leave, so I thought I'd help you and Mom get things ready early. After a pause, she added, "Oh, Dad, I'll be leaving Hadley City for a while soon." Just as the words left her mouth, Ethan's voice, unheard for 3 days, came from behind her. "Jessica Sinclair, where are you planning to leave to?" Arthur Sinclair also reacted, asking quickly, "Yes, why are you leaving Hadley City?" Jessica pressed her lips together and looked at her father, explaining, "It's a work arrangement. I'm going out of town for some training and research for a period." Arthur relaxed upon hearing this. "Well, you take care of yourself when you're away alone. You two talk. I'll go help your mother in the kitchen." He put down his newspaper and left. Jessica avoided looking at Ethan and carried her purchases towards the storage room. Ethan hesitated for half a second, then stepped forward to take the bags from her. "Let me." Jessica didn't refuse, and they went to the storage room together. Watching the silent Jessica beside him, Ethan felt an inexplicable unease and initiated conversation. "Why have you stayed home for so long this time? Isn't your research section busy?" Jessica glanced at him and replied casually, "The previous project just wrapped up. I had a few days off, so I came home." Ethan nodded. "I see." After that, he fell silent again, quietly putting the items into the cupboard. The silence reminded Jessica of her initial misconception about Ethan. When they first started dating, she thought Ethan was the quiet type because whenever they went shopping, she was the one doing all the talking. Ethan's most frequent responses were, "Right, okay." It was only after Wendy Ashworth arrived at the base that Jessica heard Ethan become talkative, even eloquent. So, a man only has endless things to say when he's with someone he likes. So, even though they hadn't seen each other for 3 days, Ethan still had nothing much to say to her. So she, Jessica Sinclair, was clearly not the person Ethan liked. Having reached this conclusion, Jessica left the storage room first. As her eyes readjusted to the sunlight, she found it somewhat harsh. She looked up at the sky for a moment, then went towards the kitchen. After lunch, the two returned to the military housing. Unexpectedly, just as they reached the door, someone from the base called Ethan away on business. Jessica was used to it. She opened the door alone and went inside. Seeing the calendar on the wall, she flipped a few pages to the date marked with the red star. Only 5 pages left, 5 days. Jessica smiled faintly, went to her room, and started packing her luggage. The books were already packed. All that remained were her personal clothes. She planned to sort out the clothes she wouldn't need in the Northwest and mail them back home on another day. Opening the wardrobe, she took out items one by one. Suddenly, her eyes fell on a red formal dress hanging on the far right. Memories flickered. This was the dress she had intended to wear for their wedding celebrations. She had gone to great lengths, saving up and calling in favors to get the fabric, then commissioning a skilled tailor to make it. It was even embroidered with magpies, symbols of marital bliss. Back then, Jessica had truly believed she would marry Ethan, that they could live together respectfully until old age, just like her father and mother, who had spent half a lifetime together. So, this dress held all her hopes and dreams for married life. Now, touching the dress, bitterness welled up in her throat. Suppressing the heartache, she folded the dress carefully, put it in a bag, and continued packing other clothes. The afternoon slipped away. By the time Jessica finished packing, Ethan still hadn't returned. She placed the large bag of clothes in an inconspicuous corner and was about to make a simple dinner when the dial phone next to the sofa rang. Jessica walked over and picked up the receiver. The voice of one of Ethan's comrades came through. "Sister-in-law, Commander Morgan is drunk at the local restaurant. Could you please come pick him up?" Jessica froze. Wasn't Ethan called away to the base? Why was he at a restaurant and drunk? She remained silent for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, I'll be right there." Arriving at the restaurant, Jessica learned it was the birthday of Ethan's comrade, Benjamin Hughes. They had been good buddies since military academy. Ethan had been called over for drinks after finishing his business at the base. Wendy Ashworth was also there. Jessica wasn't surprised, but the thought of their deep connection still made her pause in her tracks. "Sister-in-law, why did you stop walking?" Hearing the voice, Jessica snapped back to reality and headed towards the private room. Reaching the door, she saw Ethan inside, seemingly very drunk, leaning his head against his hand with his eyes closed. Wendy was looking at him with concern. Jessica placed her hand on the doorknob, about to push it open, when Benjamin Hughes' voice came from inside. Remember how perfect Ethan and Wendy were back in military school? They were practically inseparable. How did he end up marrying Jessica Sinclair? And Ethan was clearly unhappy when he and Wendy broke up. He must be feeling down tonight, getting drunk like this. As he spoke, Benjamin's bleary eyes shifted and met Jessica's standing at the door. His voice died abruptly. Benjamin sobered up instantly, stammering, "Sis, sister-in-law, you're here. I was just drunk and talking nonsense. Please don't mind me." The others saw Jessica too and quickly chimed in, trying to smooth things over. "Sister-in-law, Benny was just rambling. Don't pay any attention." Jessica walked in without a word, gently nudging the closed-eyed Ethan. "Ethan, can you walk?" Ethan groggily looked up and leaned against Jessica. Supporting him, Jessica forced a calm smile. "You all carry on drinking. I'll take him home now." With that, she half-supported, half-carried Ethan out of the room, maintaining her composure and decorum throughout. But just as she got Ethan out of the restaurant and was about to hail a taxi, Ethan's mumbled words reached her ears clearly. "Wendy, I'm sorry I let you down." Drunk words are sober thoughts, and every word stabbed at her heart. The night wind was truly cold. Jessica's eyes reddened. Ethan's muscular frame was heavy, pressing down on her shoulder. Her eyes reddened again and again. After what felt like a long time, the cold wind seemed to sober Ethan up slightly. He looked up and met Jessica's red-rimmed eyes. He paused, his voice hoarse. "Were you crying?" Jessica turned her head away, her voice tight. "No, the wind is just strong. It made my eyes water." Ethan heard this and replied apologetically, "Sorry, I really drank too much today. It won't happen again." Jessica nodded, wiping her dry eyes. "I won't be coming to pick you up anymore in the future." Ethan paused, then just shook his head, seemingly nonchalant. "Okay, I won't get drunk with them again. Let's go home." They took a taxi home. Jessica went straight to her room and closed the door. Ethan looked at the closed door, Jessica's words, "Won't be coming to pick you up anymore," echoing in his mind. A complex emotion flickered in his eyes. The next day, her leave over, Jessica returned to the military base. Her project was finished. Today she planned to hand over her work. As she reached the entrance of her building, she bumped into a colleague rushing out. Seeing her, the colleague's eyes lit up. "Researcher Sinclair, I was just rushing to find you. There's a breach in the base research data. We need your help." Jessica's pupils contracted at his words. Although she was planning to hand over her work, the base's research projects concerned national interests. Absolutely no errors could be tolerated. As a researcher, she had an undeniable duty. "Quick, take me there." Jessica followed the colleague, hurrying into the base research lab. After meticulously re-examining all the data, she finally found the vulnerability in the very last dataset. She immediately began patching it. It took the entire morning, but she finally fixed it. The harsh midday sun made her tired eyes blur. Afterwards, Jessica handed over her work. Before leaving, she walked across the base training grounds one last time, her hands brushing against each project she had participated in, bidding them farewell one by one. Her colleagues were reluctant to see her go, coming out to say quiet goodbyes. "Researcher Sinclair, we're really going to miss you." Sharon Young, the intern she had mentored, also had red eyes. Mentor, once a teacher, always a teacher. When she first arrived in Hadley City, Jessica hadn't expected to meet such a group of like-minded comrades who worked side by side. She disliked sentimentality, but she couldn't stop her nose from stinging. Meeting everyone's reluctant gazes, she waved, gathered her research tools, and left. When she returned to the housing complex, she unexpectedly found Ethan back as well. Usually, he left early and returned late, rarely coming home for lunch. Seeing the tools in Jessica's hands, Ethan's brow furrowed, his heart giving an odd jump. "Why did you bring all these research tools home?" Jessica kept her head down, not wanting him to see the slight redness in her eyes from saying goodbye to her colleagues. "This set is getting old. I'm planning to replace it." Hearing her answer, Ethan's brow smoothed and his heart slowly relaxed. He took a small box of face cream from his pocket and handed it to Jessica. "Benny said he was drunk yesterday and said some inappropriate things about Wendy and me that upset you. He specifically bought this to apologize. Don't take those rough guy's words to heart. Wendy and I are in the past. Don't overthink it. Were they really in the past, Only Ethan himself knew the answer. Jessica took the face cream and opened her mouth to say, "Okay, you say it's the past, I believe you." She curved her lips slightly, picked up her tools, and walked around him to go upstairs. Watching Jessica's calm and composed words, Ethan felt a strange panic rise in his heart. He instinctively stepped forward, took the tools from her hand, and said, "Since you're replacing the tools, I don't have much going on this afternoon. How about I go with you to buy new ones?" Jessica paused, looking at him. In their 5 years together, Ethan had never once offered to go shopping with her. Today, he suddenly had a change of heart. After a moment's silence, she nodded. "Okay." That afternoon, they went out onto the street. After buying new research tools at the hardware store, Ethan carried the bag, standing shoulder to shoulder with Jessica at the intersection, waiting for the traffic light. The setting sun cast their shadows long on the pavement. Screech! Suddenly, the piercing sound of a car horn blared from a distance. Beside her, Ethan cried out in alarm. "Watch out!" Jessica looked up to see a car hurtling uncontrollably towards the crowd. Ethan's face turned pale. He dropped the bag and sprinted towards Wendy Ashworth, who was only a few steps away. Screech! The car stopped. Wendy was safe in Ethan's arms, shaken but unharmed. But Ethan's entire arm was scraped by the car, blood soaking through his green military shirt. Jessica watched this scene, feeling as though her feet were nailed to the ground, unable to move an inch. After what felt like an eternity, she watched the ambulance arrive. The next thing she knew, the three of them were at the military hospital. The familiar Dr. Grant was treating Ethan's wound. Wendy sobbed softly. "Ethan, how could you be so foolish, risking your life for me? You have to be okay." Hearing this, Dr. Grant glanced at Wendy, then at Jessica standing nearby, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. Jessica offered a faint smile. "Doc Grant, just focus on treating his wound for now." She understood Dr. Grant's confusion. Everyone at the base knew she and Ethan were a couple, so Wendy's sudden dramatic words were perplexing. Once the wound was bandaged, Jessica asked Dr. Grant, "How is he? Is it serious?" Dr. Grant replied, "Commander Morgan's arm wound is deep, but it was treated promptly. As long as there's no infection later, it shouldn't be a major problem. I gave him anesthetic when I stitched him up. Let him sleep for a while. Come on, let's go get his medication first." Jessica nodded and followed Dr. Grant out of the room. 10 minutes later, Jessica returned to the room with the medication, only to find Ethan awake, with Wendy gazing at him emotionally. "Ethan, you risked your own safety to save me. You still have feelings for me, don't you?" On the hospital bed, Ethan's expression froze. He neither confirmed nor denied it. Wendy took his silence as affirmation. A radiant smile bloomed on her face, and she hugged him excitedly. Ethan remained still, neither responding nor pushing her away. Jessica stood there, holding the medicine. After a long moment, she lowered her gaze, a faint smile playing on her lips. She handed the ointment to a nurse and left the hospital. As she turned, a small child in a hospital gown bumped into her. Jessica looked down, her eyes instantly reddening. A single tear fell silently onto the floor, but she didn't stop walking, continuing resolutely back to the military housing. Just as she entered the courtyard, she encountered several people in blue uniforms from Everlasting Moments Photography, carrying a large board. Seeing Jessica, the woman leading the group smiled. "Miss Sinclair, the wedding photos you and Mr. Morgan took have arrived. 36 inches, custom made, so it took a little time." Jessica stopped in her tracks as they pulled the velvet cloth off the board, revealing a large wedding photograph. In the photo, Ethan was smiling on the surface, but his eyes were filled with sadness. In an instant, the scar in Jessica's heart, which had just begun to heal, tore open again. Night fell. When Jessica returned to the hospital with a few changes of clothes, Wendy was no longer in the room. Seeing Jessica finally appear, Ethan frowned. "Where did you go?" Jessica found his questioning tones slightly baffling. She gestured to the bag in her hand. "I went home to get you some clothes." Hearing this, Ethan's frown gradually eased. He didn't know why, but when he had woken up earlier and hadn't seen Jessica, he had felt an inexplicable panic. Remembering something, Ethan spoke with a hint of urgency. "Saving someone today was my duty as a soldier. Wendy and I..." Jessica's gaze paused. She hadn't expected Ethan to explain so suddenly. Perhaps there was a sliver of guilt in his heart. Jessica looked at Ethan, interrupting his attempt to repeat the explanation. You and Wendy Ashworth are comrades. Saving her was the right thing to do. You would have done the same for anyone. You've said so yourself. Ethan was taken aback, then breathed a sigh of relief. It's good that you understand. I didn't get to properly take you shopping this time, but we'll have plenty of time in the future. Jessica listened to his words, averted her gaze, and said nothing more. She lowered her eyes, the faint redness hiding the freshly reopened wounds. The future? Ethan, we will never have a future. That night, Jessica stayed at the hospital to look after Ethan. After dawn, colleagues from the base came to visit Ethan one after another. Wendy Ashworth also came, bringing soup she had made herself. Seeing Jessica, she said, "Comrade Sinclair, Ethan was injured saving me. The least I can do is make some nourishing food for him as thanks. You don't mind, do you?" Faced with Wendy's provocation, Jessica saw no reason to back down. She smiled back. "Yes, he was injured saving you. It's only right that you thank him." Ethan listened, finding the exchange increasingly strange, but looking at Jessica's composed expression, he hesitated, unsure what to say. Jessica noticed Ethan's glance, but turned her head towards the window. She had been hurt, she was tired, and she truly didn't want to delve deeper. Tomorrow was the day she left. Today, she had one last important thing to do. Once she completed this final task, whatever happened between Ethan and Wendy would no longer concern her. After the doctor's rounds, Jessica said to Ethan, "I have something to do today, so I can't stay at the hospital." "Go ahead. My arm is much better anyway. The doctor said I can be discharged tomorrow." Jessica paused for a fraction of a second, then said casually, "Tomorrow?" Ethan asked, puzzled. "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" "Nothing. Tomorrow is a good day." A smile touched Jessica's lips. He gets discharged, she leaves. Wasn't that indeed a good day? Ethan didn't sense the hidden meaning in Jessica's words, so he didn't ask further. Just then, Wendy poured the soup and brought the spoon to Ethan's lips. "Ethan, I made pigeon soup. Try some." Jessica watched the scene, quickly averted her gaze, and spoke with an air of detachment. "You enjoy your soup. I'll be going now." She turned towards the door. Looking back at the man sitting on the bed drinking soup, she mouthed silently, "Goodbye, Ethan Morgan." Then she closed the hospital room door and left without hesitation. The thud of the closing door seemed to strike Ethan's ears like a heavy blow. He instinctively looked towards the door, but Jessica was already gone. Suddenly, a dull ache spread through his chest, as if something precious was slipping from his grasp. It left him deeply unsettled. Jessica left the hospital and went straight to the commanding officer's office. "Sir, I wanted to ask if my marriage application has been intercepted. It just came through. I was about to notify you." The commanding officer handed Jessica a file folder from the side. Jessica took it. Seeing the word "void" stamped on the document, her eyes reddened, but the smile on her lips was one of relief. The commanding officer looked at her and couldn't help asking again, "Jessica, you're leaving for the Northwest tomorrow. Are you really not going to tell Ethan?" Jessica put the report away safely, looked at the commanding officer, and shook her head. "There's no need. From now on, I'll focus all my energy on research projects, contributing everything I have to our country's technological advancement." "Good. Then I wish you great success and smooth sailing." Jessica gave the commanding officer a standard military salute, left the office, and before heading back, went to the train station to buy a ticket to the Northwest for 8 a.m. the next morning. Then, back home, she opened her suitcase and meticulously checked everything she was taking one last time. Clothes, research tools, reference books, daily necessities, everything was accounted for, nothing extra, nothing missing. After packing, apart from the toiletries she would need in the morning, there was nothing left of hers in the room. Finally, Jessica's gaze fell on the gold bracelet on her wrist. Her eyelashes fluttered slightly. This bracelet was bought by Ethan when he apologized to her after she first learned about Wendy Ashworth. At that time, as Ethan slipped the bracelet onto her wrist, he had said, "Jessica, those things and people from military school are in the past. From now on, you will be my wife, the most important person in my life." Faced with Ethan's sincere and earnest gaze, Jessica had ultimately chosen to continue their relationship. He had indeed kept his promise afterwards, giving her his monthly allowance, and she made most of the decisions regarding household matters. But everything ended when Wendy Ashworth reappeared. Now, the bracelet on her wrist had lost its meaning. Jessica firmly pulled the bracelet off her wrist and placed it back in its jewelry box, untouched. Then she turned and went to the bathroom. On her last night in the compound, Jessica slept soundly and deeply. The next morning, the sun peeked over the horizon. After washing up and putting on her uniform, Jessica placed the voided marriage application and the gold bracelet on the desk. Then she picked up her suitcase and walked out the door, leaving this home without a backward glance. The sky gradually brightened. Above the military base square, the 5-starred red flag fluttered in the wind. Jessica's slightly curved eyes shone brightly. Life passes quickly. Some find quiet contentment, others seek self-fulfillment. Someone always has to be at the forefront, and she chose to use her lifelong learning to guard the nation's first line of defense in the Northwest. Military hospital. Ethan changed out of his patient gown and into his own clothes. The doctor beside him was giving him post-discharge instructions. "Commander Morgan, your arm wound has healed, but you should still avoid getting it wet for the next couple of days. Be careful, then come back to the hospital in 3 days to have the stitches removed." Ethan listened distractedly, his gaze frequently drifting towards the door. Just then, the door opened from the outside, and Wendy Ashworth walked in quickly. "Ethan, sorry I'm a bit late. I'm here to pick you up." Ethan's eyes brightened slightly, then instantly dimmed. It wasn't Jessica. For some reason, Ethan felt a surge of panic, an urgent need to see her. It felt like something was slipping away from him, and he was powerless to stop it. "Ethan, what's wrong? What are you thinking about?" Wendy's voice pulled Ethan back to his senses. He glanced at her. "Nothing. You didn't really need to come." Wendy shook her head but said, "It's a good thing I came, otherwise you would have been discharged alone. Comrade Sinclair, she..." Ethan understood Wendy's implication, blaming the wife for not being there when her husband was discharged. He frowned, instinctively defending Jessica. "She told me yesterday she had something to do today and couldn't make it." Wendy sensed Ethan's mood was off and didn't say anything more. At the entrance to the military housing, Wendy wanted to go inside with Ethan, but he dissuaded her. "Wendy, dropping me here is fine. You should go home and rest too." Wendy paused, but couldn't really refuse. "Okay, then you get some rest." Ethan nodded and went home alone. As soon as he opened the door, he sensed something was wrong. The house felt much emptier. He called out, "Jessica, are you home?" No answer. Ethan frowned, thinking she must have gone to the military base. Just as Ethan put down his things, the dial phone beside the sofa rang. He walked over and answered it. It was his mother, Mary Morgan, her voice slightly anxious. "Jessica, I heard today that Ethan was injured some time ago, are you?" "Mom, it's me," Ethan interrupted. There was a pause on the other end then. "Ethan, weren't you injured and in the hospital?" "Mom, I had a small injury a while back, but it's fine now. I just got discharged today. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry." He heard a sigh of relief from the other end. "Really? That's good, I feel much better then. Well, if you and Jessica have time in the next couple of days, come home. Mom will cook something nice for you both." "Okay, I know." Ethan chatted with his mother for a few more moments before hanging up. He stood up and went straight to the bedroom. The moment he walked in, he felt a distinct difference. He stood there, frowning in thought. Suddenly, something clicked. He looked towards the bedside table where their photo should be, and the wedding photo should have been delivered by now. But why was it blank? Nothing was there. He remembered clearly that his and Jessica's wedding photo should be hanging there. Why hadn't it arrived? Without reason, the panic in Ethan's heart didn't subside but intensified. He looked around the room, thinking maybe the hook fell and Jessica took the photo down. Or maybe. Suddenly his eyes swept across the desk and caught a glint of gold. It looked like a bracelet. Ethan strode over and looked closely. It really was the gold bracelet he had bought for Jessica. In the past 5 years, she had never taken it off. Why was it sitting here now? Ethan picked up the bracelet and saw the marriage application underneath, bearing 2 large words void. Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief. He picked up the marriage application, examining it repeatedly. It was indeed stamped void. There was no mistake. How could this be? Why did Jessica suddenly withdraw the marriage application? Weren't things fine between them? Didn't they agree to hold the wedding after filing the report? Why? There had been no warning signs. Ethan couldn't understand it. And now, Jessica was nowhere to be found. He thought about finding Jessica and demanding an explanation. What was she thinking? Why did she retract the marriage application without telling him? He took a step towards the door, then suddenly remembered why the house felt strange earlier. It was because none of Jessica's things seemed to be in this room. Ethan froze. To confirm this shocking realization, he lunged towards the wardrobe. With a swish, he flung the wardrobe doors open. His face instantly turned pale. Only his clothes remained inside. Not a single item belonging to Jessica was left. What on earth was going on? Without a moment's hesitation, Ethan ran out of the military housing and headed straight for the base. But he couldn't find Jessica anywhere. Ethan suddenly recalled Jessica mentioning she would be going out of town for research and study for a while. So he went to the commanding officer's office to clarify the situation. "Sir, did Jessica go out of town? Where did she go?" The commanding officer looked surprised. "You knew, she left for the Northwest today. It's likely she won't be coming back, but you shouldn't." Before he could finish, Ethan interrupted. "What do you mean won't be coming back? Isn't she just going for some research trip?" He looked at the commanding officer, his face pale, his lips trembling slightly. The commanding officer sighed inwardly and showed Ethan the official transfer request Jessica had submitted for the Northwest. After reading it, Ethan stood stiffly, silent for a long time, lost in thought. After a while, he finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "She applied to go to the Northwest a month ago. Why did she never tell me?" Ethan looked bewildered. He truly couldn't comprehend it. The commanding officer didn't know what to say. He couldn't interfere in the affairs of a young couple. Ethan thanked the commanding officer and left the military base. He walked down the road in a daze, a million questions swirling in his mind. Just then, he heard a familiar female voice call his name. "Ethan, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be resting at home?" Ethan had hoped it was Jessica calling him, but he knew it was impossible. Jessica had already gone to the Northwest. She hadn't told him anything, hadn't explained anything, just left him like this. For a fleeting moment, a trace of resentment towards Jessica surfaced in Ethan. Why? But seeing Wendy at that moment, he suddenly remembered the timing of Jessica's application for the Northwest. It was shortly after Wendy had been transferred to the Hadley City Military District. He belatedly realized that ever since Wendy appeared, Jessica had indeed become noticeably colder towards him. So her leaving, including retracting their marriage application, was all because of Wendy. Wendy saw Ethan frowning in thought, silent for a long time. She stepped forward and naturally took his arm. Her voice was soft. "Ethan, what's wrong? Did something happen?" Ethan snapped back to reality and looked down at her hand gripping his arm. He felt a jolt. An image flashed in his mind. The moment Wendy had suddenly appeared before him, his shock and confusion. He recalled the look in Jessica's eyes then. He hadn't paid attention before, but now he understood clearly it was utter disappointment. Ethan abruptly pulled his arm away, taking a step back. Seeing Wendy's stunned expression, he realized for the first time. He had handled the situation with Wendy completely wrong. He felt it necessary to talk to Wendy. "Wendy, there's something I need to say to you. Let's find somewhere to sit down." Wendy collected herself and nodded. "Okay, how about the park nearby? You took me there when I first arrived." Ethan frowned slightly at the reminder but didn't say much. They went to a small nearby park. Sitting down on a bench, Ethan thought for a moment, then began, "Wendy, when I woke up in the hospital after being injured, you asked me a question I didn't answer." A blush instantly crept onto Wendy's face. "Ethan, don't say it. I understand what you mean. You and Comrade Sinclair aren't married. I'll wait for you." Seeing her expression, Ethan knew she had misunderstood. His heart sank. If even Wendy thought he still had feelings for her, then Jessica must have believed it even more strongly. No, he had to clear up this misunderstanding quickly. "Wendy, you've misunderstood. I saved you simply because I'm a soldier. I would have saved anyone in that situation that day. You don't need to read anything into it." Wendy froze, looking at Ethan with bewilderment in her eyes. After a moment, she said, "Ethan, what are you saying? I don't understand." Ethan looked at her and said, enunciating each word, "Wendy, what was between us is over. Now I only see you as an ordinary comrade. Don't misunderstand." Wendy understood his meaning, her face gradually turning pale. She shook her head, disbelief filling her eyes. "But since I arrived here, you've been so considerate and caring towards me. You comforted me when I felt excluded. You were always the first one there whenever I needed something. You did so much for me, you. So, his extra care for her when she first arrived, feeling lost and only close to him, was interpreted as lingering affection in her eyes. Did Jessica think the same? Yes, otherwise she wouldn't have withdrawn the marriage application without a word and run off to the Northwest. In that moment, Ethan felt overwhelming regret. He hadn't managed the boundaries with Wendy properly, causing Jessica to misunderstand. He wanted to fix this misunderstanding, to save his relationship. And the first step was to make things clear with Wendy. Wendy, if I caused you to misunderstand, I am truly sorry. But I still want to tell you, my future wife will only ever be Jessica Sinclair. Having said this, he turned and left without waiting for Wendy's response. Returning to the military housing, seeing the room devoid of Jessica's belongings. Ethan's face was etched with bitterness, and his heart began to throb with a belated ache. He regretted not considering Jessica's feelings sooner. Things he hadn't noticed before now flooded his mind. Every time he tried to explain there was nothing between him and Wendy, she would say she didn't mind. He had thought she understood. Now he realized it wasn't understanding, it was disappointment, indifference. The realization hit Ethan hard. He deeply regretted his actions, wishing he could turn back time. He would have explained everything clearly to Jessica, and he would have definitely kept his distance from Wendy. But time couldn't be turned back. However, he wouldn't give up just like that. Even if he had to chase her to the Northwest, he would explain everything clearly to her. Ethan decided his immediate priority was to recover fully from his injuries, then apply to the political commissar to see if he could get transferred or visit the Northwest. And Jessica's parents, and his own, they probably didn't know she had gone to the Northwest yet. He needed to find time to go home and explain everything to both sets of parents, thinking about all the things he needed to do before he could go find Jessica in the Northwest. He suspected Jessica might have done this intentionally to buy herself time so he couldn't find her. Ethan was mistaken about Jessica's intentions. She had never planned to tell him at all, but she felt she owed their parents an explanation. So, at the train station before leaving for the Northwest, she began writing letters to them, planning to mail them once she arrived. It would hopefully ease their minds and prevent them from worrying too much. 2 days later, Wrong City train station, Northwest. After the train stopped, Jessica got off, carrying her suitcase. Looking around this unfamiliar city, she felt no fear, only a distinct sense of excitement and anticipation. She would be living and working in this city from now on. Jessica took a deep breath, psyching herself up. Let's do this. The future will definitely be better. Jessica carried her suitcase out of the station exit, looking around. Just then, a young man's voice sounded near her ear. "Excuse me, are you Comrade Jessica Sinclair?" Jessica turned towards the voice and saw a man of average height, wearing blue work clothes, smiling at her. When the Northwest Research Institute had approved her transfer application, they had told her someone would meet her upon arrival. This must be the person sent to pick her up. Jessica quickly nodded. "Yes, I'm Jessica Sinclair." "Researcher Sinclair, hello, welcome to the Northwest. I'll take you to the Northwest Research Institute base now." "Okay, thank you very much." Jessica followed him with her suitcase. They reached a somewhat old Jeep. The man opened the car door for Jessica. "Please get in." They both got into the car and headed straight for the Northwest Research Institute. On the way, Jessica learned the man's name was Ivan Lane, an assistant assigned to her by the Institute's leadership. Jessica felt rather flattered. "Well then, I'll be relying on your guidance." The young man seemed a bit shy and quickly waved his hands. "It's you who should be guiding me. You're a high-achieving overseas student, the only one like that in our institute." Jessica smiled but didn't say more. As they passed a post office, Jessica remembered the letters she needed to send and quickly spoke up. "Excuse me, could we stop here for a moment? I have something to mail." "Sure, of course." After the car stopped, Ivan Lane asked, "What is it? Do you need help?" "No need, it's just a couple of letters. I can go myself." She got out of the car alone and went into the post office. About 10 minutes later, Jessica came out, got back in the car, and they continued towards the Northwest Research Institute. When the car stopped, Jessica looked up through the window at the imposing characters inscribed above the tall entrance, Gate Northwest Research Institute. A sense of deep respect welled up inside her. This was the country's largest military technology research institute, holding many top-level secrets related to national defense. Once inside, one must consciously abide by all confidentiality agreements. Not a single piece of information related to the country could be leaked. Violators would be sent directly to a military tribunal. And she, Jessica Sinclair, would realize her ambitions here, contributing to the nation's military technology endeavors. Ivan Lane showed his credentials to the sentry at the gate before the vehicle was allowed passage. The vehicle drove down a central avenue, lined with red brick buildings. Sentries patrolled the street every 5 meters. Apart from the sound of their footsteps, it was eerily quiet, as if deserted. Ivan Lane parked the car to the side. "Researcher Sinclair, I'll take you to meet the director first." "Okay." Jessica got out and followed Ivan Lane to the 3rd floor of one of the red brick buildings. "Director's office." "Director, I've brought comrade Jessica Sinclair." Jessica followed Ivan into the office and saw a middle-aged man with glasses sitting behind the desk, exuding a scholarly aura. She knew he was the institute's top leader, Director Charles Shaw. She immediately stood tall, gave a military salute, and announced clearly, "Director Shaw, Jessica Sinclair reporting for duty at the Northwest Research Institute. Please guide me in the future." "Excellent, excellent, Comrade Sinclair. We've finally been waiting for you." The director stood up happily and shook Jessica's hand. He then said, "Come, let me show you around the institute and introduce you to some colleagues." Jessica quickly demurred, "How could I trouble the director? Comrade Ivan Lane can show me around." "Nonsense, let's go together." Jessica could only nod with a smile and follow Director Shaw out of the office. Leaving that building, Jessica followed Director Shaw into another building behind it, one that seemed more secure. As soon as she entered, Jessica felt a buzz of activity, a vibrant energy. Several large square tables filled the room, surrounded by people engaged in lively discussions, each voicing their opinions. Their ultimate goal was to perfect the project they were working on. This was an atmosphere she hadn't felt in Hadley City. While they occasionally had discussions there, it was usually just a few people. Here, the large room held over 10 individuals. Each person had their own expertise and specialized field, collaborating to complete projects. Jessica felt a fire ignite within her, making her eager to join them. "All right, everyone, quiet down please. I'd like to introduce a new comrade," Director Shaw announced loudly. The previously bustling room instantly fell silent. Everyone turned to look, many eyes settling on Jessica. "This is Comrade Jessica Sinclair, a high-achieving overseas student transferred from Hadley City. Starting today, she officially joins the institute and will be your colleague." After Director Shaw finished, Jessica smiled and said, "Hello everyone, my name is Jessica Sinclair. As I'm new here, I look forward to learning from all of you. Welcome, new comrade. And a pretty female comrade too, welcome, welcome." Hearing the enthusiastic welcome from her colleagues, Jessica's initial nervousness slowly eased. Looking at these friendly colleagues, she thought her future work and life here should be quite pleasant. After the director left, Ivan Lane took Jessica to the dormitory. On the way, Jessica chatted with Ivan. The people in the Northwest seem very hospitable. Those colleagues earlier all seemed very easy to get along with. Ivan nodded with a smile. "Naturally. We'd heard all about you before you arrived and were looking forward to meeting you. Although, there is one person." Jessica looked at Ivan's hesitant expression. "What's wrong? Is someone difficult to get along with?" "Not exactly. He wasn't here today. You'll find out tomorrow." Jessica wasn't too concerned. As long as he wasn't difficult, it didn't matter. She was here primarily for work, not to make friends. Ivan led Jessica to the innermost room on the 2nd floor of the dormitory building. "This is your dorm room. Mine is on the 3rd floor. If you need anything, just come find me." "Okay, thanks a lot." Jessica noted that Ivan, though a few years younger than her, was meticulous and thoughtful. The director had indeed found her a good assistant. After Ivan left, Jessica used her key to open the door. Inside, though small, the room had everything she needed. It was a single-person dormitory, complete with its own kitchen. Although the institute had a canteen, she sometimes preferred cooking for herself. Having a kitchen in her dorm was exactly what she wanted. Jessica was very pleased. That day, Jessica finished her evening routine early and lay down on her bed. She couldn't help thinking about her parents, thousands of miles away. Her letters would likely take 3 or 4 days to reach them. When they learned what she had done, she wondered if they would blame her for keeping it secret. Well, no point dwelling on it. Now that she was here, she should focus on her work. Jessica closed her eyes and soon drifted off to sleep. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, Ethan lay in bed, unable to sleep. He had grown accustomed to Jessica's presence beside him. Now, the room felt empty, just him alone. He felt no drowsiness at all. Tomorrow, he was due to have his stitches removed at the hospital. His arm injury would be completely healed then. He had stayed home these past 2 days, not going out, his mind filled with memories of his time with Jessica. He belatedly recognized the joy and warmth Jessica had shown him from the beginning, and then the disappointment and indifference after Wendy's arrival. He knew clearly now. It was his lack of boundaries with Wendy that had hurt Jessica to the point of despair. He knew he was wrong now, and he would find a way to explain things to Jessica. As for that voided marriage application, he wouldn't accept it. He also believed that if he just explained things to Jessica, she would surely forgive him. Comforting himself with these thoughts, Ethan slowly drifted into sleep. The next day, Jessica woke up early, had breakfast at the canteen, and went straight to the Research Institute building. When she arrived, none of the other colleagues were there yet. She noticed some project files related to ongoing research on the large central table and thought she could take a look to familiarize herself. Just as she reached for the files, a deep male voice sounded from behind her. "You're the new comrade who arrived yesterday?" Startled, Jessica quickly turned around. A man emerged from behind a large desk in the corner, holding several scattered papers. He must have been bending down to pick them up when she came in, which was why she hadn't seen him. She composed herself, nodded, and said, "Hello, my name is Jessica Sinclair." The man nodded but didn't say more. He sat down in a chair and began writing intently on the papers, head bowed. Jessica frowned slightly as she watched him. The more she looked, the more she realized this man seemed quite young, not much older than her, and rather handsome. He had well-defined features, a high nose, and lips of moderate thickness, currently pressed slightly together. He exuded an air of profound composure. Jessica found herself staring, somewhat mesmerized. "Have you seen enough?" A voice suddenly sounded beside her ear, sharp as thunder, jolting her back to reality. She realized the man who had been sitting in the corner was now standing right in front of her. Jessica's face flushed slightly. She took an involuntary step back, stammering, "Sorry, I was spacing out." Regaining her composure, she looked at the man again and noticed he was tall and well-built, standing a head taller than her. She also noticed his eyes, dark and bright as ink, possessing a depth that made one feel drawn in. Jessica quickly lowered her gaze. Is there anything I can help with? Can you calculate this data?" The man's voice sounded again, and several sheets filled with formulas appeared in Jessica's line of sight. She took them and glanced over them, frowning instantly. "Can't these calculations be done by machine?" She looked around. Yesterday, she had clearly seen machines for this purpose here. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. She pointed to a dusty machine in the corner. "Look, that machine can do it. We don't need to calculate it by hand." But seeing the man's face darken slightly, she paused and asked, "What's wrong? Did I say something wrong?" "We never use machines here. I calculate everything by hand, step by step. Since you don't know how, never mind." He turned and walked back to his seat in the corner, burying his head in his calculations again. Jessica stood there, stunned. Just as she was about to approach him again, other colleagues began arriving. Ivan Lane hurried over to her. "Researcher Sinclair, why are you here so early?" "Oh, I went to bed early last night, so I came in early today to take a look." She pulled Ivan aside, pointed towards the man in the corner, and asked, "Who is that man? Can you tell me about him?" Ivan glanced in that direction. "You spoke to him. He's the person I mentioned yesterday. His name is Jordan Thornton." Jessica nodded. "So all the data calculations here are done by hand, without using machines." Ivan nodded, then shook his head. "Not all of us calculate by hand. He calculates everything by hand, and his results are more precise than the machines by 1 decimal place." Jessica's eyes widened. More precise than the machine by 1 decimal place. That meant if the machine usually calculated to 2 decimal places, he could calculate to 3? This was simply genius among geniuses. No wonder he looked displeased when she suggested using the machine. And she had never heard of such a person before. Truly, hidden talents abound. But this also presented a problem. Although his calculations were more precise, they took significantly more time. What about the cost in terms of time? Jessica posed this question to Ivan. Ivan patiently explained, colleagues at the Institute have raised this point before. But Mr. Thornton's more precise data has actually accelerated the Institute's research speed. And do you know how long it takes him to calculate one cycle of data? How long? Jessica was incredibly curious. Typically, such complex calculations would take about half an hour even on a machine. So, for a person calculating by hand, it must take at least 4 hours or more. 2 hours? Jessica was utterly dumbfounded. 2 hours? It only took 2 hours? She had to admit, this man named Jordan Thornton was truly remarkable. Jessica was completely in awe. But this kind of talent is unique to him. The director mentioned he's looking for a successor who can inherit his calculation system, but unfortunately, none of us currently have that level of sensitivity to data. Jessica listened thoughtfully. She recalled that when she first applied to come to the Northwest, her application was initially rejected, but she didn't give up and applied again. This time, they asked about her data-related abilities. Coincidentally, her studies abroad focused heavily on data analysis. It was her strong suit. Hearing that data was her strength, they immediately approved her application. So, could she interpret this as her successful transfer being due to Jordan Thornton needing a successor? Was Jordan Thornton trying to test her abilities just now when he immediately asked if she could calculate that data? And how had she responded? Jessica put her head in her hands. This was a disaster. She wanted to explain herself to Jordan Thornton, but found his workstation empty. As she looked around for him, a voice called her name from the doorway. Comrade Jessica Sinclair, Director Shaw wants to see you in his office. Jessica nodded quickly and headed towards the office. On the way, she was still thinking about how to explain things clearly to Jordan Thornton when she found him. Just as she reached the director's office door, she heard Jordan Thornton's low, cold voice from inside. I don't need the newcomer, please reassign her. What happened? We agreed that Comrade Jessica Sinclair would work under you as soon as she arrived, to become the successor to your calculation system. So it was true. Seeing Jordan Thornton about to refuse again, Jessica quickly knocked on the office door. She opened the door and walked in with a smile, addressing Jordan Thornton. Mr. Thornton, there was a misunderstanding earlier. I can explain. Jordan Thornton glanced at her, his expression impassive. Don't use that title loosely. You won't be my student. Then he turned back to the director. I've said what I needed to say. I'm going back to work. He walked straight out, leaving Jessica and Director Shaw facing each other. What happened between you two? Tell me your side. Jessica recounted the morning's events. After listening, the director remained silent for a long moment before speaking. Comrade Sinclair, I assume you figured out our primary reason for approving your transfer to the Northwest Research Institute. Now, I want to know your thoughts. Jessica immediately replied, I heard about Mr. Thornton's work from Comrade Lane just now. I admire him greatly, and I sincerely hope his manual calculation system doesn't end with him. Losing it would be a national loss. I'm grateful that you and Mr. Thornton saw potential in me. I will do my utmost to diligently learn and carry on Mr. Thornton's manual calculation system. She also had other ideas, but there was no rush to mention them now. Good, spoken with ambition. Go find Jordan. Talk to him properly. He won't make things difficult for you. Okay, thank you, Director. Jessica left the director's office and quickly returned to Jordan Thornton's workstation. She apologized sincerely. Mr. Thornton, I was impulsive earlier. Please don't take offense. The reason I suggested using the machine was to save time. But I understand now that the combination of your precision and speed is not slower than the machine's calculations. I realize my perspective was too narrow. I genuinely want to learn from you. Please teach me. She finished with a deep bow. Jessica looked up at Jordan Thornton with hopeful eyes. After what felt like a long time, Jordan Thornton looked at her and handed her a stack of papers. Calculate this data according to your own methods. I'll only give you half an hour. Jessica's face lit up with joy. She quickly took the papers. Okay, I'll work diligently. Jessica took the papers to her own workstation and buried her head in the calculations. Ivan Lane came over. "Researcher Sinclair, is there anything I can help with?" Jessica shook her head without looking up. "No, it's okay, I can manage. You can go work on other things." Ivan didn't disturb her further and left. Jessica's overseas studies had focused on mathematics, so the calculations were relatively familiar. However, her past reliance on machines made her speed somewhat slow. But she didn't show any impatience, instead proceeding steadily, step by step. In her view, Jordan Thornton would likely prefer accurate data, even if calculated slowly, over fast but error-filled results. Half an hour passed quickly. Jessica placed her calculations on Jordan Thornton's desk precisely on time. Jordan Thornton picked up the papers and glanced at them. Initially, his brow was furrowed, but gradually it relaxed, and finally, a hint of satisfaction appeared on his face. Jessica watched his expressions and breathed a quiet sigh of relief. "Not bad. The calculations are all accurate, but the speed is too slow. You'll need much more practice." Jordan Thornton's voice sounded slowly. "I understand, Mr. Thornton." Jordan Thornton glanced at Jessica, then pointed to a specific part of the calculations. "There's actually a simpler method here that can save considerable time." Jessica quickly leaned closer, listening intently as Jordan Thornton explained. Over the next few days, Jessica spent her time immersed in data calculations, her days full and busy. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in Hadley City, Arthur and Eleanor Sinclair were shocked by Jessica's letter. The two elders immediately summoned Ethan. David and Mary Morgan were also present. "What's going on with Jessica? Why did she suddenly run off to the Northwest? And she says she retracted the marriage application with you?" Arthur Sinclair asked Ethan, frowning. Ethan's parents, listening beside them, were equally incredulous. "Gone to the Northwest and withdrew the marriage application?" Mary Morgan's expression changed instantly. "Ethan Morgan, did you do something to hurt Jessica? Why else would she suddenly call off the wedding?" Hearing his own mother place the blame squarely on him, Ethan felt a wave of bitterness. This matter was his fault, and he knew he was wrong now. But hearing his mother say it so bluntly in front of everyone still stung. He looked at both sets of parents and lowered his head, admitting his mistake. "I'm sorry, Mom, Dad, Uncle Arthur, and Eleanor. It was my fault for hurting Jessica. But please rest assured, I've already applied for a transfer to the Northwest. I will go explain things to her clearly and apologize." Arthur and Eleanor exchanged glances. They had read their daughter's letter. It mentioned both families but didn't say a single word about Ethan. Knowing their daughter, she must have been deeply hurt and completely disillusioned with Ethan. Arthur thought for a moment and said, "Are you sure you want to go to the Northwest too? Jessica's letter said everything there is confidential. Even if you go, you might not be able to find her, let alone see her." Ethan immediately replied, "It doesn't matter. As long as we're in the same place, we'll meet eventually." "Dad, you said Jessica sent a letter? What did it say? Can I see it?" Arthur hesitated, then handed the letter to Ethan. Ethan took the letter with anticipation and read it from beginning to end. It spoke of her going to the Northwest to contribute to the country's technological development and asked both sets of parents not to worry or be sad. But about him, there wasn't a single word. Ethan's heart clenched tightly, his brow nodding. "Jessica, do you really hate me this much?" Regardless, Ethan was determined to go to the Northwest to find Jessica. Neither family objected to his decision. Mary Morgan simply said, "When you see Jessica, talk to her properly. Apologize where you need to apologize." Ethan nodded. "I understand, Mom. I should get going now." Returning to the military housing, Ethan prepared to pack his things for the immediate journey to the Northwest. Just then, there was a knock on the door, accompanied by Wendy Ashworth's voice. "Ethan, are you home? There's something I want to talk to you about." These past few days, Ethan had been intentionally avoiding Wendy, keeping his distance. He didn't want her to think there was still any possibility between them. He was leaving Hadley City soon. This meeting could serve as a farewell. Thinking this, Ethan opened the door. Wendy looked somewhat pale. Seeing Ethan, she immediately asked, "I heard from people at the base that you applied for a transfer to the Northwest." "Yes, and I'm leaving in the next couple of days," Ethan replied, his voice flat. "Why suddenly go to the Northwest?" Wendy stared intently at Ethan. "Work requirements. I'm going for work." Wendy looked at the man before her, biting her lip hard. She shook her head. "You're lying. You're not going to the Northwest for work. I haven't seen Jessica Sinclair around lately. You're going to find her, aren't you?" Hearing Wendy use Jessica's full name so directly, Ethan frowned, his tone sharp. "This is between my wife and me. It has nothing to do with you." Wendy's eyes turned red. She desperately tried to grab Ethan's hand, but he evaded her grasp. "Ethan, you can't do this to me. We were the ones who were together. I worked so hard to get transferred to Hadley City, all for you. You can't just abandon me." Ethan looked at the distraught woman before him, feeling not a ripple of emotion in his heart. "Wendy, I told you before, what was between us is over. My wife is Jessica Sinclair. Please stop talking like this. All right, you should go back now. I need to pack." Without giving Wendy another chance, he shut the door firmly. 5 days later, Ethan arrived at the Northwest Military District. After settling into the military housing, he started asking about the Northwest Research Institute. He was told that access to the institute was restricted. Furthermore, the staff inside couldn't come and go freely, and everything within was classified. Ethan thought, "It's okay if I can't see Jessica right now. At least we're both here in the Northwest. We'll meet eventually." Half a month later, there was a bustling market day in Wrong City. Ethan happened to have the day off. He remembered the interrupted shopping trip with Jessica. On a whim, he went to the market too. He figured if Jessica managed to get out of the institute, she would definitely come here for a look around. He recalled knowing she actually loved browsing markets and shops, but in the years they dated, he seemed to have rarely gone with her. No wonder Jessica felt he didn't care about her and didn't want to marry him. Thinking this, Ethan felt a sharp pang in his chest. He wandered aimlessly through the market and noticed a pretty little trinket. Thinking Jessica might like it, he reached out to pick it up. Suddenly, a hand stretched in from his left. "This trinket is lovely, shopkeeper. How much is it?" Recognizing the familiar voice, Ethan was overjoyed. He turned quickly and saw the person he had been thinking about day and night. Jessica Sinclair stood before him. Jessica saw Ethan too. Surprise flickered across her face, quickly replaced by calm indifference. Their eyes met. Though only a short time had passed, it felt like an eternity. Ethan happily grabbed Jessica's hand. "Jessica, I finally found you." Jessica pulled her hand away, her tone level. "Why are you here?" Seeing Jessica's coldness, Ethan's joy began to fade. "Jessica, you." Before he could finish, 2 men approached from nearby. One, of average height and younger, spoke first. "Researcher Sinclair, you walk so fast, Mr. Thornton, and I could barely keep up." He then looked curiously at Ethan. "And this is?" The other man, Jordan Thornton, remained silent, merely glancing at Ethan. Jessica hesitated, unsure how to introduce Ethan. Ethan spoke up himself. "Hello, I'm Jessica's husband. My name is Ethan Morgan." As soon as he finished, Jessica added, "To be precise, ex-husband." All 3 men froze, looking at Jessica with varying expressions. Jessica, however, seemed unfazed. She simply paid for the trinket. Then she turned to Jordan Thornton. "I was planning to go to the wet market to buy some rice and vegetables. Mr. Thornton, perhaps you and Comrade Lane could head back first?" Jordan Thornton replied, "It's fine. It's rare we get a chance to browse the market. We'll go with you." Jessica naturally had no objection. The group effectively excluded Ethan. Before leaving, Jessica simply nodded at him. "I have things to do, so I'll be going now." Without waiting for Ethan's reaction, she turned and walked away. Ethan stood rooted to the spot, bewildered. Since they started dating, this was the first time Jessica had ignored him so completely. His heart ached, but he didn't know how to explain that everything before had been a misunderstanding. He also knew he couldn't just let her leave like this, so he followed them to the wet market. When Jessica finished her shopping and came out of the market laden with bags, Ethan stepped forward to stop her. "Jessica, I need to talk to you. Can we talk alone?" Before Jessica could reply, Jordan Thornton spoke up. "Ivan Lane, let's help her carry these things to the car first. We'll head back." Then he looked at Jessica. "Don't be too late," Jessica nodded. "Okay, thank you, Mr. Thornton." She handed her bags to Jordan and Ivan. After they left, she turned to Ethan. "All right, let's talk over there." Jessica led Ethan to a relatively secluded spot under a large tree where there were few people. "Ethan Morgan, whatever you want to say it quickly. I need to get back to the institute soon." Ethan couldn't stand Jessica's coldness towards him. "Jessica, I came here to explain that there's really nothing between me and Wendy. I know you suddenly withdrew the marriage application because you felt I didn't care about you. It was my fault for not keeping my distance from Wendy, letting you misunderstand. Please don't be angry anymore, okay?" Jessica was actually a little surprised by his words. She had expected him to question why she left suddenly, why she suddenly didn't want to get married. Instead, he had figured out the reason himself. But in her days in the Northwest, she had seen everyone at the Institute dedicating themselves wholeheartedly, even sacrificing sleep and meals for the country's technological advancement, especially seeing Jordan Thornton's dedication, his willingness to give everything for the nation. It made her own romantic troubles seem insignificant, so she said to Ethan, "I don't care about it anymore. Right now, I just want to focus on my work at the Institute, using my knowledge to serve the country." Ethan had never imagined this reaction from Jessica. He had always believed Jessica's feelings for him were deep. He thought if he just explained clearly, they would definitely go back to how things were. Even if she stayed in the Northwest, it didn't matter. He could stay here with her. But now, after his explanation, Jessica's expression remained just as cold, and she even said she didn't care anymore. Ethan's heart felt like it plummeted into an abyss. He looked at Jessica and said, "Jessica, please don't be like this. I really know I was wrong, and I've drawn a clear line with Wendy. Can we start over, please?" Seeing Ethan like this reminded Jessica of the first time she found out about Wendy. He had pleaded with her just like this then. She had softened then, believing they could grow old together. But now, she didn't care, and she didn't want to go back. "Ethan Morgan, our marriage application has been voided. Don't waste your time on me." She glanced at the sky. "It's getting late. I need to return to the Institute. I'm leaving now." With that, she left. Ethan watched Jessica walk away, his heart aching so much he could barely breathe, but he refused to give up. He didn't believe Jessica could abandon their relationship so easily. He knew her focus was on her career now. He could wait, but he would not accept that the marriage application was void. No matter what, he was Jessica Sinclair's husband. Meanwhile, Jessica returned to the Institute. She learned that her purchases had been taken to Jordan Thornton's dormitory. She went to find him, asking around and learning his room was the first one on the right on the third floor. At the door, Jessica knocked. "Mr. Thornton, are you in?" After a moment, Jordan opened the door. Seeing Jessica, he pointed to the items left in the corner. Jessica quickly went in to pick them up and only then noticed the full state of Jordan Thornton's living space. The room layout was the same as hers, but here, only a corner held a single bed. The rest of the space was filled with stacks of various documents and papers. She looked closely. The papers were covered in dense formulas and calculation steps, and it was all handwritten. Jessica felt genuine admiration. As she was about to leave with her things, she noticed leftover food on the table, likely takeout from the canteen, but barely touched. Unsure why, Jessica suddenly spoke to Jordan Thornton. "Mr. Thornton, I'm going to cook dinner later. Would you like to join me?" Jordan Thornton paused, a hint of surprise flashing in his eyes as he looked at Jessica. Jessica also felt she had been a bit forward, but the words were out. "You helped me carry my things back today. Consider it a thank you. I'll ask Comrade Ivan Lane to join us too." After a moment, Jordan Thornton nodded. "Okay, I'll go get him later." Jessica smiled. "Then I'll start cooking now. It should take about 40 minutes. We'll be ready." Jessica nodded and returned to her own dorm with her groceries. Taking a step, she turned back and asked Jordan Thornton, "Mr. Thornton, are there any dishes you particularly like? Or anything you don't eat?" Jordan Thornton thought for a moment, then shook his head. "Anything is fine. I'm not picky." As Jessica walked back, her mind was already planning the menu. Although Jordan said he wasn't picky, judging by the untouched vegetables on his table, he probably wasn't fond of things like onions. And it was clear he often stayed up late. It would be better to make something light, perhaps some bone broth soup for nourishment. 40 minutes later, Jessica placed the last dish on the small dining table. Just as she untied her apron, she heard a knock on the door. She hurried to open it and saw Jordan Thornton standing there alone. "I just went looking for Ivan Lane, but he wasn't there." Jessica quickly stepped aside to let Jordan in. "It's okay, maybe he ate at the canteen. It's fine if it's just the two of us." Jordan Thornton nodded and stepped into the room. He looked around in slight surprise. A female comrade's room could be so neat and clean, even faintly fragrant. He walked to the dining table and saw the 4 appetizing dishes. Jordan Thornton asked, "It seems you're quite a good cook." Jessica handed him a bowl and chopsticks, smiling, "Not really, I just cook often, so practice makes perfect." They sat facing each other across the table and began to eat. Jordan Thornton picked up a piece of braised pork, tasted it, and nodded. "Not bad, quite delicious. If you like it, Mr. Thornton, please eat more." She then witnessed Jordan Thornton's eating speed. He finished his meal in about 5 minutes. She watched, dumbfounded. Jordan Thornton noticed her incredulous look. "Did I startle you? I always eat like this." Jessica shook her head, indicating she didn't mind. Having followed Jordan Thornton closely these past few days, she knew how busy he was, often lacking even time for sleep, let alone proper meals. But gobbling food down like that was bad for digestion. Jessica reached over, took Jordan Thornton's bowl, and ladled some bone broth into it. "Mr. Thornton, have some soup to soothe your throat. Drink it slowly, there's no rush." Jordan Thornton looked at Jessica, his eyes filled with warmth. He took the bowl she offered and nodded. "Okay, thank you." He consciously slowed down his pace as he drank the soup. "This soup is good." Jessica smiled and nodded. "If you like it, you can have more. There's still a large bowl left." They finished the dinner in a pleasant atmosphere. During the meal, they also discussed some work-related issues. Jordan Thornton was impressed by Jessica's sharp intuition with data and her ability to extrapolate and think critically. He became very willing to teach her his calculation system wholeheartedly. He hoped she could carry on his legacy. Jessica, while learning diligently, actually had her own ideas. Jordan Thornton's calculation method was highly precise, but if it could be combined with the speed of a machine, it would truly multiply their efficiency. However, she wouldn't mention this to Jordan Thornton just yet. She planned to write a detailed proposal in a couple of days. Then she would discuss it with him properly. She just wondered if he would accept it. "Jessica, what are you thinking about?" Jordan Thornton's sudden voice broke Jessica's train of thought. She quickly looked back at him. "Nothing, sorry, Mr. Thornton, I accidentally spaced out." Jordan Thornton frowned slightly and stood up. "Thank you for dinner tonight. It was delicious." Jessica quickly replied modestly, "I'm glad you enjoyed it, Mr. Thornton." Jordan Thornton nodded. "Then I'll be going." "Okay, goodbye, Mr. Thornton." Jessica saw Jordan Thornton out, then returned to clear the table and wash the dishes. After tidying up and taking a shower, Jessica sat down at her desk and began writing the proposal she had been contemplating for so long. She tried to make it as detailed as possible, determined to convince Jordan Thornton to approve her plan. 2 days later, early in the morning, Jessica took her proposal to find Jordan Thornton. Jordan Thornton looked at it, a hint of confusion in his eyes. "What's this?" He took it and flipped it open. He saw the title, "How to Combine a More Precise Calculation System with Machines." Just seeing this, Jordan Thornton's face darkened. He looked up at Jessica. "Tell me, what is this? You still haven't given up on machines?" He slammed the proposal down on the table, making a loud noise. Instantly, colleagues at other workstations looked over. Jessica felt mortified. She had suspected Jordan Thornton might be angry, but she hadn't expected him to be this angry. And to lash out at her like this in front of everyone, without even hearing her explanation. But now wasn't the time to dwell on that. She took a deep breath and looked at Jordan Thornton with determination. "Mr. Thornton, could you please let me explain this proposal in detail first? I promise, if you still don't agree with my idea after I've finished, I will never mention it again." Jordan Thornton stared intently at Jessica. After a long pause, he said, "I'll give you one chance. Tell me exactly what you're trying to do." Jessica's heart leaped with joy. Just giving her a chance was enough. She picked up the proposal, opened it in front of Jordan Thornton, and said, "Mr. Thornton, I've thought about it. Your calculation system is very precise, and while its speed is already fast, it's still far from the speed of a machine. So I thought, if we could teach the machine your calculation system, we could increase the speed significantly. It would truly multiply our efficiency." "Teach the machine my calculation system?" Jordan Thornton frowned, his mind rapidly considering the feasibility. He immediately thought of a problem. "But even if this method works, how do we teach the machine? We don't have anyone here who understands machine operations and programming." Hearing him say this, Jessica quickly asked, "Does that mean you agree with my idea, Mr. Thornton?" Jordan Thornton looked at the beaming Jessica. He did think the method was feasible, but don't get too excited. Just having this proposal is useless without the relevant technical personnel. The leadership won't approve the budget for this, and it's a significant amount. Jessica looked at Jordan Thornton, her eyes shining. What if I could save the Institute the cost of hiring relevant technical personnel? What do you mean? Jordan Thornton met Jessica's gaze, and suddenly something clicked. Are you saying you know machine operation and programming? Jessica nodded. When I was studying abroad, besides data analysis, I also majored in machine operations and programming. Jordan Thornton looked at Jessica, genuinely surprised. He hadn't expected this slender female comrade to possess such skills. In that moment, he truly felt it. Approving her application to join the Northwest Research Institute had been absolutely the right choice. Jordan Thornton didn't waste any time. He picked up the proposal and stood up to leave. Jessica, confused, grabbed his arm. "Mr. Thornton, where are you going?" Jordan Thornton gently pulled her along with him. "We're going to see the director. You'll explain everything to him again in detail." Jessica knew Jordan Thornton had agreed. She nodded eagerly. "Okay, I'll do my best to persuade the director." They went together to the director's office. With Jordan Thornton present, Jessica explained her proposal in detail to the director again. After she finished, Jordan Thornton spoke. "I think Jessica's idea is worth adopting. However, it's a major undertaking and will require the Institute's full support." The director looked through Jessica's proposal, silent for a long time. Jessica felt anxious. If the Institute didn't agree then, but it seemed unlikely. If this plan succeeded, it would have tremendous significance for the nation's technological research. Perhaps this technology could even lead the world. Of course, there were many practical factors to consider, one of which was funding. After what seemed like a long time, the director finally looked up at Jessica and Jordan Thornton. He said, "I will submit this proposal to the higher authorities and do my best to secure funding for you. But I cannot guarantee the final outcome. You must both maintain a realistic mindset." "Understood. Thank you, Director," Jordan Thornton said, then led Jessica out of the office. On the way back to their workstations, Jessica looked at the frowning, thoughtful Jordan Thornton beside her and spoke gratefully. "Mr. Thornton, thank you for believing in me and supporting me just now." Jordan Thornton glanced back at her. "I'm not doing it for you. As long as what you do advances the Institute's research mission, I will support it." Jessica nodded. "I know, but thank you anyway." Over the next few days, they both waited for news from the director. One day, Jessica unexpectedly learned from Ivan Lane that Jordan Thornton's 30th birthday was in a few days. She thought about buying him a gift to express her gratitude for his help during this time. The Institute had a day off soon, so she could go out and look for something suitable on the street. But as soon as she got to the street, she ran into someone she didn't want to see: Ethan Morgan. Ever since their last encounter, Ethan had been wondering when Jessica might leave the Institute. So, whenever he had free time, he would go near the Institute entrance, careful not to linger too long to avoid suspicion. His persistence paid off. After another half-month, he saw her again. Ethan realized a pattern. The Northwest Research Institute staff normally couldn't leave, except for one day every half-month, and even then, it required an application and questioning. Ethan quickly walked up to Jessica. "Jessica, I guessed you might come out today, so I waited here for you." Jessica was speechless. "Why were you waiting for me? I've already told you everything clearly. There's nothing left for us to talk about." "No, Jessica, you're just angry with me right now. I don't believe you can just throw away our years of relationship like this." A shadow crossed Ethan's eyes as he looked at Jessica. "Ethan Morgan, how many times do I have to tell you before you believe me? I've completely given up on you. I have no hope left. You didn't do anything unforgivable. It's just that, comparatively speaking, you care more about Wendy Ashworth." "No, I only care about you," Ethan insisted again. Jessica shook her head. "It's pointless to talk about this now. I have things to do, so I'm leaving." She started to walk away, but Ethan grabbed her arm. He dropped the previous topic and asked, "Where are you going? I drove. I can give you a lift." "No need, I can manage." Ethan interrupted. Your parents called a couple of days ago asking about you. I said I'd have you call them back when I saw you. How about today? Jessica paused, then said, I understand, I'll call them back. Jessica, do you really dislike me that much? I just want to give you a ride and call home together. Is that not okay? Ethan felt hurt by Jessica's continued coldness. Jessica checked the time. She still needed to buy a gift for Jordan Thornton and didn't have time to waste with Ethan. She thought for a moment, then finally agreed to let him drive her to the largest mall in Wrong City. Fine, a ride is just a ride. It won't hurt, and it saves me taxi fare. Seeing Jessica agree, Ethan's face lit up. He quickly opened the passenger door for her. Jessica glanced at him, said thank you, and got in. Ethan immediately got in from the other side. Where to? The mall. Ethan nodded and drove towards the city center. After parking, Ethan got out of the car with Jessica. Seeing him get out too, Jessica decided not to rush her gift shopping. Instead, she went directly to a small shop front. Excuse me, I'd like to use your phone to make a call. Sure. Local calls are 10 cents, long distance is 20 cents. Jessica nodded and dialed the number for her parents' home, thousands of miles away. Ethan walked over and stood beside her, watching. Soon, the call connected. It was her father's voice. Jessica spoke, Dad. Her father paused for a second then. Is that Jessica? Are you doing okay over there in the Northwest? Jessica had thought her parents might scold her, even slightly, for suddenly coming to the Northwest. But instead, they only cared about whether she was doing well. They had no complaints about her decision. Jessica felt a pang of guilt. Dad, I'm doing very well here, don't worry. Please take good care of yourselves at home too. Don't you worry about us, we will, her father replied. He paused, then added, by the way, Ethan went to the Northwest too. Have you seen him? Jessica glanced at Ethan standing beside her. He's right here next to me. So, you too. Dad, please don't say any more. It's impossible between us. I gave him a chance before, and he didn't cherish it. Hearing her words, Ethan's face turned deathly pale. He wanted to say something, but knew he no longer had the right. But his heart ached terribly, and he still didn't want to give up. He truly couldn't lose Jessica. If she wouldn't forgive him, he could wait a lifetime if necessary. After hanging up, Jessica turned to Ethan. You gave me a ride, we made the call. I still need to buy something. You don't need to follow me anymore. She turned and walked towards the mall. Ethan stood there, watching her leave him once again. He closed his eyes, his heart feeling like it was being torn apart. Jessica ignored Ethan's turmoil and focused on finding a birthday gift for Jordan Thornton, a way to thank him for his help recently. She looked at many things and finally chose an aromatherapy diffuser with a sandalwood scent, known to aid sleep. For someone like Jordan Thornton, who worked late almost every night, sleep quality was likely poor. Hopefully, this could help him. After buying the gift, Jessica returned to the institute. Jordan Thornton informed her. Jessica, the proposal was approved by the higher-ups. The budget will be allocated in a couple of days. You will be in charge of this project. Any problems with that? Jessica's eyes curved into a happy smile, her tone full of confidence and determination. Mission accepted. I guarantee completion. From then on, Jessica immersed herself in studying the machines, figuring out how to integrate Jordan Thornton's calculation system. She discussed specific details with Jordan Thornton almost daily. She practically lived at work, often staying very late before returning to her dorm. Time flew by, and soon it was Jordan Thornton's birthday. Jessica brought his gift with her to work. As she reached the entrance of their work building, she heard colleagues inside teasing Jordan Thornton. I say, Comrade Thornton, you're turning 30 today, still no girlfriend. Want me to introduce you to someone? Yeah, a workaholic like you really needs a wife to take care of you. Then she heard Jordan Thornton's voice. You know I'm a workaholic. If I actually got married, where would I find time for family? Don't ruin some poor woman's life. Jessica thought the topic was closed and was about to walk in. Suddenly, another colleague spoke up, bringing her into it. That new comrade, Jessica Sinclair, seems quite nice. You two work together every day. Haven't you had any thoughts, Comrade Thornton? Both inside and outside the door, people froze. Jessica felt utterly lost. How did she suddenly get dragged into this? She had no romantic feelings for Jordan Thornton. She only saw him as a teacher and mentor. Jessica quietly backed away. Better to go in later, otherwise it would be incredibly awkward. Luckily, no one seemed to notice her standing there, but fate seemed determined to make her uncomfortable. Just as she took a step back, a loud voice boomed from behind her. It was Ivan Lane. "Researcher Sinclair, why are you standing at the door and not going in?" His voice carried, and everyone inside turned their gaze towards the entrance. Jessica closed her eyes, wishing the ground would swallow her whole. Steeling herself, Jessica walked in, barely daring to look at Jordan Thornton, feeling overwhelmingly awkward. "Jessica Sinclair, what are you dawdling for? We have a lot to do today. Get over here," Jordan Thornton called out to Jessica, his tone strictly professional. Jessica immediately snapped back to work mode. Oh, right away. She pushed aside all distracting thoughts and focused entirely on her work. The surrounding colleagues saw the two engrossed in their tasks and didn't say anything further. After all, the earlier teasing was their own doing. They could play matchmaker, but couldn't force anything. Things had to develop naturally. Jessica had no spare time to dwell on the earlier incident, constantly engrossed in programming the machines. It wasn't until lunchtime that she finally took a breather. When Jessica looked up, her colleagues had all gone to eat, leaving only her and Jordan Thornton. She thought about the gift in her bag but hesitated, worried that giving it to him now might make him misunderstand her intentions. Just as Jessica was grappling with her dilemma, she heard Jordan Thornton ask, "Do you still have questions?" Jessica quickly shook her head. Jordan Thornton looked at her hesitant expression, seemed to realize something, and said, "Don't mind what the colleagues said this morning. Just focus on doing your job well, don't overthink other things. I'll explain things clearly to them. Don't worry about it." Jessica looked into Jordan Thornton's dark, steady eyes and quickly replied, "I don't mind. I was just worried it might trouble Mr. Thornton. I hear things like that almost every year. I'm used to it. I just want to focus on my research. I have no interest in other things." Jessica paused. She knew Jordan Thornton prioritized work above all else, but she hadn't realized he truly meant disregarding everything else, including marriage and family. "But your parents, don't they mind?" The question slipped out before Jessica could stop herself. She immediately regretted it. "Sorry, I didn't mean." "You don't know." Jessica was confused. "Know what?" Jordan Thornton smiled faintly. "My parents passed away. I'm all alone now." Jessica was stunned, unsure what to say. I didn't know. I'm sorry." Jordan Thornton didn't seem bothered. He gathered his things from the table and stood up. "Let's go eat." Jessica took a second to react. By the time she stood up, he was already several steps ahead. She quickly grabbed the gift from her bag and caught up, saying, "I know today is your birthday, so I bought you a gift. I hope you don't mind." She handed him the aromatherapy diffuser. Jordan Thornton stopped and looked at the object in her hand. He took it. "Thank you." He examined it closely. "What is this?" Jessica explained its function and how to use it as they walked. By the time they reached the canteen, Jessica had finished explaining. Jordan Thornton carefully placed the gift in the pocket of his work jacket. He smiled at Jessica. "Thank you, I like it very much." Just as they stepped into the canteen, a loud boom suddenly erupted, shaking the entire ground. Jessica momentarily lost her balance and nearly fell, but Jordan Thornton quickly grabbed her wrist, steadying her. "What was that?" Both Jessica and Jordan looked towards an area not far from the institute. Black smoke billowed into the sky from that direction. People rushed out of the canteen to see. Was that an explosion somewhere? That was loud. That direction seems to be the restricted minefield area. Did someone wander in, or? Everyone looked worried. Jessica gazed towards the smoke, feeling uneasy too. Hopefully, it was a controlled mine-clearing operation by the military. Hopefully, no one was hurt. Afterward, everyone went back to their routines, but the worry about the minefield lingered. Everyone feared for their loved ones. The director learned about the situation and quickly reassured everyone, then sent people to investigate. It wasn't until evening that Jessica heard snippets of news from others. It really was the minefield that exploded. Initially, no casualties, but during the last clearance, a soldier misjudged and didn't retreat in time. A commander saved him, but now that commander is in the hospital, life or death uncertain. I heard that commander only recently arrived in the Northwest. His surname is something like Morgan. Hearing this, Jessica instinctively froze. Morgan just arrived in the Northwest. Could it be Ethan Morgan? Startled, Jessica didn't say anything but turned and walked towards the director's office. She entered the office and saw Jordan Thornton was also there. "Director, I wanted to ask about the minefield explosion today. I heard someone was injured. Who was it?" The director looked at Jessica. "It was a young soldier named Ethan Morgan." "Why, do you know him?" Jessica's heart sank. It really was him. "Yes, I know him. How is he now? Can I apply to go see him?" Once inside the Northwest Research Institute, personnel generally couldn't leave unless for critical personal matters. So the director didn't immediately agree. Jordan Thornton glanced at Jessica and spoke up. "Perhaps I could accompany her to take a look. If everything's all right, we'll return immediately." Finally, the director nodded. Jessica and Jordan Thornton arrived at the hospital and found Ethan still in surgery. She asked a comrade waiting outside, "How is Ethan Morgan?" The comrade, a tall man, looked at Jessica and seemed to guess her identity. When Ethan first arrived in the Northwest, this comrade had asked him, "You had it good in Hadley City, why come to the Northwest?" Ethan had replied, "I came to find my wife. I did something wrong and hurt her. I came to ask for her forgiveness." Later, he heard Ethan asking about the Northwest Research Institute, and recently, he hadn't seen him interacting with any other female comrades. For a female comrade to suddenly show up now, it could only be his wife. The comrade glanced briefly at Jordan Thornton beside Jessica but didn't comment. He simply answered her earlier question. Ethan was injured in the explosion. He's still in surgery. We won't know the specifics until the doctor comes out. Jessica had promised the director she would just check on Ethan at the hospital and return if he was okay. But with Ethan still in surgery, she hesitated. She said to Jordan Thornton, "Mr. Thornton, perhaps you could go back first and inform the director. I'll wait here until the surgery is over." Jordan Thornton considered for a moment, then said, "It's all right, I'll wait with you." Jessica nodded. They sat down together to wait. The surgery lasted a very long time, ending only as dawn broke the next day. Such a long surgery made Jessica worried. Although she no longer had romantic feelings for Ethan, they had been childhood friends. Moreover, he had come to the Northwest primarily because of her. And their parents back in Hadley City didn't know Ethan was injured. If something terrible happened, she didn't know how she would tell them. When the exhausted doctor finally emerged, Jessica heard him say, "The patient was severely injured, but his life is no longer in danger." That's good. Thank you, doctor." The comrade's face showed immense relief, and Jessica also let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Since they had to get back to work, Jessica and Jordan Thornton didn't stay long at the hospital before returning to the institute. She decided to visit Ethan again during the next break. 5 days later, it was a designated rest day. Jessica went to the hospital again and found Ethan awake. He seemed stunned when he saw Jessica, then his face lit up. "Jessica, you came. My comrade told me you visited before. I could hardly believe it. I knew you still cared about me." Jessica placed the fruit basket she bought on the way beside his bed and sat down in the chair next to it. "We know each other. When I heard you were injured, it was only right to come and see you. There's no other meaning. Don't overthink it." The smile on Ethan's face dimmed for a second, then reappeared. "It doesn't matter. As long as you're willing to come, as long as you're not avoiding me, that's enough." Jessica didn't want to get caught up in this topic again and changed the subject. "How are your injuries?" She saw his leg elevated high and bandages wrapped around his head. "Was it your leg that got hurt?" "It's nothing, just minor injuries. The leg will heal in 10 days or half a month. Don't worry." Jessica nodded. Thinking of something else, she asked, "Should we let Aunt Mary and Uncle David know?" Ethan paused, realizing she meant his parents. Jessica used to call them Mom and Dad. Now she had changed her form of address. "Is there really no chance left for me?" A sharp, constricting pain gripped Ethan's heart, and his face paled slightly. Seeing his sudden pallor, Jessica asked quickly, "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell somewhere? I'll get the doctor." She started to get up, but Ethan grabbed her wrist. "It's nothing, no need for the doctor." Jessica let out a sigh of relief and sat back down. She noticed Ethan still holding her wrist tightly and firmly pulled her hand away. Silence fell in the room. Jessica felt there was no need to stay longer. After peeling an apple for Ethan, she stood up. "Since you're out of danger, I should be going now." Seeing her ready to leave so soon after arriving, Ethan looked crestfallen. "Can't you stay a little longer? I won't get to see you again for another half-month." Jessica pressed her lips together, her eyes showing no emotion as she looked at Ethan. "No, I have other things to do. I'll leave now." "Jessica, is there really no chance for me?" As Jessica turned to leave, Ethan finally asked the question hanging in the air. Jessica paused for a second, then shook her head. "No." After a moment, she added, "Ethan Morgan, the past is past. I think my current life is very good, and I don't want to go back to how things were. If you only came to the Northwest for me, then once you've recovered, you should go back. There's no need to force yourself to stay here for my sake." Ethan listened silently, his heart feeling crushed under a massive weight, the pain unbearable. He watched helplessly as Jessica left the hospital room, her words echoing in his mind. He thought about the vast, shocking expanse of the minefield he had seen in the Northwest desert. He fell into contemplation. Although he initially came to the Northwest for Jessica, did he truly want to stay in this land, now only because of her? Perhaps he needed to seriously reconsider. Jessica left the hospital and returned to the institute. She was heading back to her dormitory when she encountered Jordan Thornton coming down from the 3rd floor as she reached the 2nd. Seeing Jessica, he said, "You're back. Good timing. Come with me somewhere." Jessica quickly followed him back downstairs. "Mr. Thornton, what happened?" Jordan glanced at her. "Didn't you write a complete machine program? Let's go test it out." Jessica paused, then said, "That program is just an initial framework. Are we testing it now?" Jordan Thornton nodded. Jessica didn't say more, but she found it strange. Jordan Thornton always emphasized steady progress, patience, and avoiding haste. Especially in research, persistence and patience were key. Why did he seem so eager today? Jordan Thornton sensed Jessica's confusion. "I saw a news report this morning. Foreign countries are also researching how to improve the precision of machine calculations." Jessica froze, instantly understanding Jordan Thornton's meaning. Her initial proposal to combine Jordan's manual precision with machine speed was based on the fact that such technology didn't exist abroad yet. If their country could be the first to develop it, it would significantly demonstrate national strength. With this thought, Jessica quickened her pace, determined to give her all and ensure their research surpassed foreign efforts. They arrived at their work building and started the machine. Jessica quickly operated the controls, inputting the entire program sequence. Finally, she turned to Jordan Thornton. "Mr. Thornton, please input the data to be calculated." Jordan Thornton nodded, stepped forward, typed in several numbers, and waited for the machine's result. Jessica held her breath, her eyes glued to the machine screen. The final result displayed was a number with only 2 decimal places. Failure, Jessica felt disheartened, but Jordan Thornton beside her showed little reaction. He looked at Jessica's crestfallen expression. He said, somewhat helplessly, "This was just your initial program. Isn't it normal for it not to succeed on the first try?" Jessica knew he was right, but she still felt down. But she also knew this mindset was detrimental. She immediately cleared her head and rallied herself. "Mr. Thornton, rest assured, I won't give up. I believe in you." In the following period, Jessica spent all her time pondering how to make the machine calculate more precise results, how to enable it to effectively integrate the core elements of Jordan Thornton's calculation system. She worked tirelessly, often returning to her dorm late at night, sometimes even falling asleep slumped over her desk. Her assistant, Ivan Lane, constantly helped her. Seeing her working so hard, he couldn't help saying, "Researcher Sinclair, perhaps you should take a break. Don't really make yourself sick." Jessica waved him off without looking up. "It's okay. Let's finish the task at hand first." Ivan Lane's attempts at persuasion were futile. He knew he could only try to help share her burden. Jordan Thornton observed everything but said nothing. He knew that until the final machine program was complete, she wouldn't rest. This continued for nearly 2 months. One evening, at dusk, Jessica excitedly ran up to Jordan Thornton. "Mr. Thornton, I've created a complete program. We can test it right now," Jordan Thornton replied. "It's a bit late today. Go home, get a good night's sleep, and we'll test it tomorrow morning." Jessica wanted to argue, but Jordan Thornton insisted she go rest. She had no choice but to return to her dormitory. She truly fell asleep the moment her head hit the pillow. She slept soundly until the next day. Waking up refreshed, Jessica washed up and hurried to the work building. She found Jordan Thornton already waiting for her. Mr. Thornton, good morning. Morning. Jordan Thornton nodded at her. Without further ado, Jessica started the machine and input the final program she had completed yesterday. She then input Jordan Thornton's calculation system. Finally, she looked at Jordan Thornton again. Jordan Thornton nodded and, just like last time, entered the data to be calculated. This time, Jessica was so nervous her palms were sweating. When the final result appeared, showing 3 decimal places, Jessica gasped. Success, Mr. Thornton, we did it. But when she met Jordan Thornton's slightly furrowed brow, Jessica's heart skipped a beat, a bad feeling creeping in. What's wrong, Mr. Thornton? Is there a problem? Jordan Thornton looked at her and said gravely, although the machine's result is precise to 3 decimal places, the 3rd digit is incorrect. For comparison, Jordan Thornton had input a dataset he had previously calculated by hand. He clearly remembered the final result, and it differed slightly from the machine's calculation this time. Jessica froze, the joy instantly extinguished by cold water. So, Mr. Thornton, does that mean this attempt also failed? Jordan Thornton looked at the disheartened Jessica and shook his head. It's not entirely a failure. I don't understand machine programming, but I feel it's likely just some minor details that went wrong. So what you need to do now is not be discouraged, but go through everything again from the beginning and find the source of the problem. Jessica looked at Jordan Thornton, who remained composed under any circumstances. Somehow, she didn't feel quite so discouraged anymore. She thought, I've come this far, I absolutely cannot give up. So she called Ivan Lane over, and together they meticulously reviewed all the programming work done over the past weeks. Because the process was complex, Jessica didn't leave her workstation for several days straight. But as they neared the end, she still couldn't pinpoint the error. The closer they got, the more anxious she felt. Jordan Thornton saw her expression. During mealtime, he proactively started talking about his own experiences. Jessica, did you know that when I first started calculating data, I was just like you now? No matter how I calculated, I couldn't get the precise answer. Do you know why? Jessica shook her head, indicating she didn't know. Because of ambition. Back then, I was too eager to calculate the correct answer, and I lost my usual composure. Later, I realized that researching data is my lifelong pursuit. Even if I succeed this time, there will be a next time. If I calculate the correct answer now, does that mean I stop calculating forever? Jessica paused, listening to his words, then understood. She looked at Jordan Thornton gratefully. Thank you, Mr. Thornton. I understand now. She had been too focused on wanting the machine to produce precise results, pushing too hard. If she succeeded this time, would she just stop progressing? Would she stop researching projects? Conversely, if she failed, should she just give up and leave the Northwest Research Institute? Any researcher builds upon countless failed experiments, and she was just beginning. Once Jessica adjusted her mindset, things proceeded much more smoothly. 2 days later, Jessica successfully identified the cause of the error and made adjustments. The final test was conducted in front of all the institute staff. Jordan Thornton input the calculation data again. In less than 10 minutes, the machine screen accurately displayed the final answer. Seeing Jordan Thornton nod with a smile, Jessica felt an immense sense of relief. A wave of thunderous applause erupted around them. From that day forward, Jessica Sinclair's name would resonate, known throughout the nation. 1 month later, on the award stage, Jessica Sinclair accepted the Medal of Honor bestowed upon her by the state. She looked at the 5-pointed red star on the medal, stood on the stage, and gazed at the countless onlookers below. Tears welled in her eyes as she spoke. Thank you to the nation for this honor. I will forever cherish it in my heart. In the future, I will continue to dedicate my life to our country's technological advancement. Thank you, everyone. After she finished speaking, applause filled the air. Jessica stepped down from the stage. She hadn't walked far when she heard someone call her name from behind. Jessica, she turned. It was Ethan Morgan. Jessica then remembered his injury and quickly asked, "Why are you here, your injury?" "It healed long ago. Today is your big day. I definitely had to come." "Congratulations, Jessica." A confident smile graced Jessica's face. "Thank you." Ethan looked silently at the Jessica before him, then slowly curved his lips into a smile as well. "Jessica, I've decided to stay in the Northwest too. I know it's impossible between us now, but can we still be friends? Jessica looked at this Ethan and noticed something different about him. This change was gratifying, but beyond that, she felt no other emotion. She smiled and shook her head. Exes don't make good friends, it's too complicated. Hearing this, Ethan's expression froze. Jessica turned, gave a smiling wave, and strode confidently towards the distance. In that moment, Ethan knew he had completely lost Jessica Sinclair, both past and future. In that moment, Jessica had truly become the protagonist of her own life, ready to see a higher and farther world.